I'm Karen, and the day I married Alex was everything a girl could dream of. The venue was an old Victorian mansion, the kind that would fit right into a gothic romance novel. It was surrounded by lush gardens, complete with a picture. Perfect fountain at the center. A small chapel was decked out with white roses, ivory drapes, and warm ambient lights. I could feel the love in the air, punctuated by the smiles and laughter of our friends and family. Alex was my knight in shining armor, and I was on cloud 9. As I walked down the aisle, clutching my father's arm, Alex's eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to stop. His gaze was so intense, so full of love, that I could feel my heart swell with emotion. The ceremony was beautiful. Our vows were simple yet heartfelt, a genuine pledge of eternal love and partnership. "You may kiss the bride," the minister announced, and as our lips met, it felt as if fireworks were going off in the background. Cheers erupted from our loved ones, and for that moment, all was perfect. However, every fairy tale has its villain, and mine came in the form of Linda, Alex's mother. Right from the beginning, she exuded an air of arrogance, a veneer of politeness barely masking her disdain. Her eyes would dart around the room looking for targets to unleash her passive barbs of barbs. During the wedding reception, she leaned over to Alex and said in a voice loud enough for me to hear, "I hope Karen's cooking is better than her taste in wedding decor. Roses are so last season." Alex forced a smile, squeezing my hand under the table. "Mom, Karen worked really hard to make this day special. Can't you just be happy for us?" "Oh, I am delighted," Linda replied, her voice dripping with insincerity. "I just hope she knows what she's getting into, being part of our family now." The evening progressed with more festivities, dancing, and joy. Yet, Linda continued to cast her dark cloud. When it was time for the speeches, she grabbed the microphone and began. Well, as the mother of the groom, I must say, Alex could have done worse. A murmur of disbelief ran through the crowd, but she seemed oblivious to it, basking in her own self-importance. "Don't worry," Alex whispered to me, his face flushed with embarrassment. "She's always been this way. Just ignore her." I nodded, but couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but Linda had already cast a shadow over it. Still, I didn't let her ruin my day entirely. I danced with my friends, kissed my new husband, and tried to soak up the love and happiness that surrounded us. However, as the evening drew to a close, I couldn't help but wonder, was Linda just a harmless, albeit annoying aspect of my new family? Or was she a harbinger of chaos, a sign of the trials that lay ahead in my marriage? Little did I know then how soon I would find out. So yes, my wedding was a fairy tale come true, but as I would soon learn, even fairy tales have their dark corners, lurking monsters, and battles that need to be fought. Linda was my monster, and the battles with her were just beginning. I'd always loved my family home. It was a 2-story colonial, elegant in its simplicity, situated on a sprawling piece of land. Inside, the house was a mix of modern comfort and vintage charm. My late father had been a carpenter and an antique collector, so the home was filled with pieces of intricate woodworking, historical charm, and endless love. You could feel the history seeping through the walls, whispering tales of better times, of love and laughter. When Alex and I decided to make this house our marital home, I felt like another beautiful chapter was being added to its long and storied history. Alex loved it too, and he was eager to make his own mark, blending our lives into the rich tapestry of its past. Together, we brought in new furniture, updated the kitchen, and planted a garden filled with flowers that bloomed in unison, much like our own budding life together. But the atmosphere would change every time Linda set foot in the house. Her visits were like clockwork, calculated and punctual, and they carried the same sense of dread as a looming storm. Her eyes would scan each room as if searching for flaws, for gaps in the house's perfect facade that she could pick at with her needle. Sharp comments. "Oh, what an interesting choice of wallpaper," Linda would say, her lips curling into a half smile, half smirk. "It's so, what's the word? Eclectic." "I happen to like it," Alex would retort, defending our choices. "It gives the room character." "Character is one word for it," she'd reply, maintaining her composed demeanor while delivering her veiled insult. On one occasion, Alex and I hosted a barbecue in the yard. We invited a few close friends and family, aiming for a laid-back and enjoyable day. Everything was going well until Linda arrived. Dressed in an ensemble that was overly formal for a simple barbecue, she strutted into the yard like she was entering a gala. "Oh my, what a quaint little gathering," she announced, examining the setup with feigned enthusiasm. "Karen, did you decorate all this yourself?" "Yes, I did," I replied, my teeth clenched in a polite smile. I thought a casual event would be nice for everyone. How adorable. A casual event for a casual house, she scoffed, eyeing the exterior of the home as if it were a run-down shack. What hurt most was the way she devalued not just the home, but the memories and the love it stood for. This was the house where I grew up, where my father had painstakingly fixed every crack, maintained every board, and where my mother had lovingly tended to every flower in the garden. It wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was a living, breathing embodiment of my family's history. For her to insult, it was to insult a core part of who I was. "Ignore her, Karen," Alex would whisper, sensing my growing discomfort. "She's just jealous because she knows she could never create a home as warm as this one." But ignoring Linda wasn't as easy as it sounded. She had a knack for digging under your skin, for turning even the simplest comments into thorny barbs. She seemed to revel in my discomfort, feeding off it like a parasite feeding off its host. It was becoming clear to me that Linda's attitude wasn't just a minor annoyance. It was an active disruption to our lives, a toxic presence that tainted everything it touched. The home that had always been my sanctuary was becoming a battleground, and as the days turned into weeks, I knew something had to give. It was either her or me, and I wasn't willing to back down. Not for my own home, my own marriage, my own life. As I would soon find out, the issue wasn't just Linda's snide remarks or her toxic behavior. She had much darker plans, and I would need to be prepared for what came next. Life has a way of hitting you when you least expect it. Just when I thought I was finding my footing in this turbulent new chapter, the ground beneath me gave way. The marketing firm I worked for, a mid-sized agency I'd given 5 years of my life to, announced its bankruptcy. I was called into the HR office on a nondescript Wednesday afternoon. "Karen, I'm afraid we have to let you go, effective immediately," said Emily, the ER manager, her eyes unable to meet mine. "Is there no other way?" I asked, my voice shaky. "We've tried everything, Karen. It's not just you. Almost everyone is being let go," she replied. Walking back to my desk to pack my belongings, the weight of reality sunk in. I was jobless, and in an economy that wasn't exactly brimming with opportunities. On the drive home, I thought about how to break the news to Alex. As supportive as he was, this was another challenge, another complication in our already strained domestic life. When I told Alex, he hugged me tightly. "Don't worry, we'll get through this together," he assured me. "You don't think less of me?" I hesitated to ask. "Of course not. Times are tough for everyone. We'll figure something out." Figure something out. Easier said than done, especially when every application I sent seemed to vanish into a black hole, each job portal more depressing than the last. And just when I was about to lose all hope, a lifeline, or what appeared to be one, was thrown my way. It was a Sunday afternoon when Linda called. "Karen, dear, I heard about your job situation," she started, her voice oozing a sweetness that I'd never heard before. "Yes, it's unfortunate," I replied cautiously. "Well, as luck would have it, we have an opening at my company, a managerial role in the marketing department. Would you be interested?" The offer was shocking, to say the least. Linda, who had never had a good word to say about me, was offering me a job. And not just any job, but a managerial position in her multi-million-dollar company. "Wow, Linda, that's a generous offer," I stammered, skepticism ringing in my ears. "Well, you'd still have to pass the probation period, but I think you'd be a good fit," she continued, almost as if she were selling the idea to herself. When I discussed it with Alex, he too found it strange. "You sure about this? It doesn't sound like her," he said. "I know, but what choice do I have? We've got bills to pay," I replied, my gut feeling turning into a tight knot. "I just don't want you to get hurt," he cautioned. "I can handle Linda," I assured him, but in my heart, I wasn't so sure. It was a gamble, but it was one I felt I had to take. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into the lion's den. Little did I know that this opportunity would reveal Linda's true colors in a way I'd never imagined. And as I would soon find out, this wasn't a lifeline at all. It was noose, and Linda was only too happy to pull it tight. My first day at Linda's company felt like stepping onto foreign soil, where every move is watched and analyzed. I was hyper, aware of my surroundings, acutely conscious that my new colleagues knew I was not just another hire, but the aligned daughter, in-law of the boss. "Karen, welcome! Your office is ready. I trust you'll find everything to your liking," Linda greeted me with an unsettling air of congeniality as I entered the building. "Thank you, Linda. I appreciate the opportunity," I replied, keeping my tone polite but guarded. The job itself was challenging, but not impossible. I had a small team under me and was responsible for developing marketing strategies for some of the company's key accounts. The work was similar to what I had been doing at my previous job, but the atmosphere was different. There was an underlying tension that never quite went away. Perhaps it was because Linda was always nearby, always watching. Even when she wasn't in my line of sight, I could feel her presence like a looming storm cloud, dark and ominous. The month passed. My probation period ended, and I was officially added to the company payroll. Linda sent an email around announcing my stellar performance and invaluable contributions. Coming from anyone else, this would have been a proud moment. Coming from Linda, it felt like another layer in a complex game that I hadn't quite figured out yet. Then came the strange invitation. It was a Tuesday, just another busy workday, when Linda stopped by my office. "Karen, do you have a moment?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Of course. What's up?" I replied, masking my unease. "I was thinking, why don't we put our differences aside and grab a coffee later? There's a lovely little diner just around the corner. We can catch up, talk about work, or anything you'd like," she proposed, her eyes meeting mine for the first time in what felt like an eternity. I was taken aback. This was Linda, the woman who had made my life hellish at every opportunity, now offering an olive branch. The very thought was both suspicious and confounding. "I appreciate the invitation, Linda." "Sure, let's do coffee," I said, cautiously accepting her offer. I figured that if she was willing to extend an olive branch, the least I could do was meet her halfway, even if I was uneasy about her motives. "Excellent! I'll see you at 4 then," she said, turning on her heels and walking away with a self-satisfied smile. As she left my office, my phone buzzed with a message from Alex. "How's your day going?" he texted. "Your mom just invited me for coffee later. Any idea what that's about?" I responded. "No clue, but be careful, okay?" he texted back. I pondered over his words, a strange feeling settling in my gut. Be careful, easier said than done when dealing with someone as unpredictable as Linda. I wasn't just walking into a casual coffee meeting, I was walking into unknown territory, and I had to be prepared for whatever Linda had up her sleeve. It was a critical moment, one that would set the tone for what lay ahead. If only I had known just how critical it would be. At exactly 4 p.m., I found myself sitting in the quaint diner Linda had mentioned, its vintage charm a stark contrast to the tension that filled the air. She was already there, having taken a seat in a corner booth that offered a vantage point of the entire establishment. "You made it! How wonderful!" she greeted, her voice as saccharine as the sugar packets on the table. "I said I would," I responded, sliding into the seat opposite her. Linda then did something odd. "Excuse me for a moment, dear. I'll go get our coffees," she said, standing up abruptly and walking toward the counter. I watched as she spoke to the barista, her gestures animated, her lips moving, but the words lost in the low hum of the diner's chatter. It struck me as peculiar that she took such a long time just to get 2 cups of coffee, but I dismissed it as just another idiosyncrasy of hers. Finally, she returned to the table, holding 2 steaming cups. Just as she was about to set them down, one of the employees of the diner, a young man who looked no older than 20, approached me discreetly. "Mom, can I talk to you for a second?" he whispered, his eyes darting nervously to Linda, who was now busy stirring her coffee. Sure," I said, getting up and taking a few steps away from the table, my heart beginning to race. "I don't have much time, but you need to leave." "Now," he said, his voice tinged with urgency. "What? Why?" I asked, puzzled and alarmed. "Let's just say another employee recently had coffee with your mother-in-law, and let's just say she didn't fare too well afterwards. Look, I don't know what's going on between you two, but you need to go," he warned. I felt my blood run cold. The strange behavior, the prolonged absence at the counter, the very fact that she invited me here. It all suddenly clicked into place in the most horrifying way. "Thank you," was all I could muster before returning to the table, my mind racing with a mix of dread and indignation. Linda looked up from her cup, a coy smile forming on her lips. "Oh yes, just a minor issue with my order," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. As we sat there, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on me, I knew I had a decision to make. I could confront her right then and there, or I could play her game and turn it on its head. As much as my initial instinct was to leave, to put as much distance between me and this sociopath as possible, another part of me screamed for justice, for retribution. My eyes met Linda's, her gaze filled with a curious mix of anticipation and apprehension. And it was in that moment I knew exactly what I had to do. "I'm looking forward to this coffee," I said, picking up my cup and raising it slightly as if to toast. "So am I," she replied, lifting her own cup. We both took a sip, and as the liquid touched my lips, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. This was it, the turning point. I had just been handed the most poisonous of lemons, and it was time to make lemonade. The minutes following our mutual sips felt like an eternity. Linda's eyes were scanning the room, seemingly detached, but I knew better. She was waiting, anticipating the moment when her venom would take effect. It was a macabre dance, and she had choreographed each step to culminate in my downfall. It was at that exact moment that Peter, a colleague from work who was fully aware of Linda's manipulations, walked into the diner. This was part of my hastily constructed plan. I had texted him while pretending to be engrossed in my coffee, asking him to come by under the guise of needing to discuss an urgent work matter. He was skeptical but agreed, understanding the gravity when I briefly explained the situation. "Ah, there's Peter," I said, spotting him as he entered. "Would you excuse me for a moment? There's an urgent issue at work that we need to address." "Of course, dear," Linda replied, masking her frustration poorly. I met Peter near the entrance. "Thanks for coming. I need a favor," I whispered hurriedly. He nodded, concern etched on his face. "What do you need?" "I need you to go over there and distract Linda. Talk about the quarterly reports or the upcoming board meeting or whatever. Just keep her attention on you," I instructed. Without asking any further questions, Peter walked over to our table. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Johnson. May I have a moment of your time? It's about the core strategies." Linda's eyes narrowed, but she obliged. Seizing the opportunity, I quickly switched the cups. My heart was pounding in my chest as I returned to the table. The switch had gone unnoticed. Peter took that as his cue to leave, throwing me a subtle thumbs up as he exited the diner. "So, where were we?" I asked, retaking my seat. "I believe we were enjoying our coffee," Linda said, lifting her cup for another sip. And so we did, sealing our respective fates with each drop. Approximately an hour later, Linda's demeanor changed noticeably. Her face grew pale, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. "Are you all right, Linda? You look a little unwell," I asked, feigning concern. I don't know. I feel odd," she stammered, clutching her stomach. At this point, the diner had thinned out, leaving us in relative privacy. I leaned in, locking eyes with her, and lowered my voice to a chilling whisper. "I know what you tried to do today, Linda. The coffee, the job, all of it. It was all an elaborate setup to get rid of me, wasn't it?" My words were like daggers, and I could see them piercing through her veneer of confidence. She looked at me, her eyes widening with realization and horror. "Yes, I did. And now you're feeling the effects of your own wicked plot. So let's make a deal. You leave me and Alex alone, stay out of our lives, and I won't go public with your failed attempt to poison me." I could see the struggle in her eyes, but the pain was becoming too much for her to bear. "Fine! Deal?" she managed to croak. "I'm glad we understand each other," I said, standing up to leave. As I walked out of the diner, a sense of liberation washed over me. For the first time since meeting Linda, I felt like I could breathe again. I had taken back control, flipped the script, and written my own ending. Revenge, as they say, is a dish best served cold. But in this case, it tasted remarkably like a hot cup of poisoned coffee. And I must say, the taste of victory was exceptionally sweet.